This is Marketing Jam, a show featuring the brightest minds in marketing.
Brought to you by Canada Post. Head to canadapost.ca/Insight Podcast for ideas to add value to your marketing.
Thanks everyone for joining us on another week of Marketing Jam. I am so excited because we today are talking about one of my favorite things, which is local search optimization. It's going to be a great one. I've been looking for someone to speak to this for a very long time, someone who has the experience, the know-how, the knowledge, and can help us better understand it. Because I really believe whether you're enterprise or you are Sal's cat sweater company in Winnipeg, Manitoba, local search optimization impacts you. So Krystal, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
So Krystal, how did this become your world, local search? What's your origin story, as every great superhero has one?
Well, I don't think I'm quite a superhero, but I started in e-commerce, merchandise management, and originally I was kind of tasked with making sure our site product represented what our customers were searching for. And for a while when I first began, it was about watching trends, working with a lot of these like fast fashion magazines and warehouses to make sure we had a collection that matched what they had. And in a very short period of time, I saw that transition really quickly from, being led by trends to being led by SEO. And I was now tracking things in Google search and seeing what product categories were converting based on trends people were searching for. And for me personally, I just found that way more interesting than like working with these magazines and trying to steal the style. And it kind of forayed into my role in local now. And for me, I just really love this story of it, how you can use local search to tell a story about your company. Like you said, whether big or small, there's a ton of power in local search.
And for those that are maybe kind of enterprise level, or they're trying to wrap their heads around what is local search, how would you describe it to someone today?
So right now, if you were to go on your phone, and I say that because I think a ton of it has to do with mobile, but we've got a lot of people at home with, pandemic, that it might be desktop a little bit more now. But if you're searching and you're trying to find anything, a product or a service, whether that's for it to be delivered to your home or for you to go get it, that's local. Whether it's, you need to find a doctor or a pharmacy, or you need to pick up some milk, anything that you need, I think in the context of, coming to you or you going to get it is really local.
So what do you say are kind of the main factors that go into local search today?
So I think right now, local search is transforming over, what we're going through with the pandemic. I think a lot more people are thinking locally. They've got, a bigger need to get things right now in this moment. They've got less flexibility. So I think people are exploring a little bit more locally. So one of the things I think, goes into your location, where you are and who is your market, who is your community, and making sure you're serving them. I think that is absolutely the most important thing in local search.
So is it all about Google My Business?
A lot of it is, but it's not all about Google My Business. There's a ton of different elements. You can start with Google My Business if you're, like you said, a small, sweater shop. In Canada, you certainly can start with Google My Business, but it shouldn't end there. I think a lot of people need to focus on their websites from a local perspective. And when we're thinking about like enterprise, a lot of the times the focus of your website is e-commerce, and you forget about bringing a local experience to your website. So there's a ton of opportunity to essentially reiterate what you're doing in Google My Business and other profiles on your website. And you've got a lot of more freedom, like you can add a bunch of cool imagery. If you're thinking purely Google My Business, you are restricted. But if you're thinking of directories, you've got a lot. You've got Bing a little bit. You've got like Yelp, especially if you're like a restaurant. I think Yelp's going to be a big one. I also think, if you're in any niche industry or a hotel, you've got to look at places like TripAdvisor. And that kind of goes back to finding your community. Is your community on TripAdvisor? Is your community on Nextdoor? Google's going to be the biggest. They're going to give you the most customers, the most phone calls, the most clicks. But you certainly got a lot of opportunity, and it really just depends on your industry.
That's awesome. So looking at Google My Business, those that don't know, the history of it is kind of funny in that they attempted to be a social media channel as Google+.
Yeah. So Google My Business was kind of Google Places, and Google Plus was more of the forefront of their initiatives. But I think Google quickly found out, and even more so now, that I think Mike Blumenthal coined it that, Google My Business is like the gateway drug to Google Ads, where Google makes all their money. So once they saw that opportunity, that there was a large space for businesses to be seen, and that they had all the eyes and the platform to host this, I think it's just grown exponentially. And it's really crazy to see the changes it's made in the last 10 years, let alone like the last 5 years.
Are you a Google Maps or an Apple Maps user?
I am purely Google, Samsung, Android. I don't think I've ever used an Apple product, but I do work a lot with Apple Maps as well. But I'm not as familiar from a consumer standpoint with Apple Maps.
What about Waze? Did you ever venture into Waze to get your little fun car?
I have not used it myself. I use Google Maps, and I think it's just as helpful. It tells me about like the traffic data and all that. So I don't think I've needed to use Waze.
How about local guide? Have you become a local guide yet in any levels with their new kind of incentive program?
I am a local guide, but I don't contribute like a ton. I know there's tons of local guides that have given like hundreds of reviews. I think I've got like 50 reviews really for, the places that I trust, and I really, want to give them feedback, whether it's positive, neutral, or, I think I've got 1 or 2 negative reviews. I'm not a huge complainer, but I think the power of leaving reviews as a local guide is incredible, especially if it's to a small business.
Yeah. I've built myself up to a level 7 local guide.
Did you get the socks?
No, I think because I'm in Canada, we don't get all the cool perks like that. But I get a little special star next to when I leave reviews. I think they give me things like some storage online was a gift.
Yeah, I think I got like a subscription to some either New York Times or something like that. Yeah.
So when we look at that and kind of small businesses and micro businesses that are listening to the show and those that work in that field, they always often ask, what social media platform should I be on? Would you consider Google My Business a social media platform or an SEO tool?
I definitely think it's more of an SEO tool that you can explore socially. There's certainly some social elements and ways you can communicate with users. But its core purpose should be informational and exposure, less about social. But there's certainly new features with messaging and Google Posts and their images and videos that allow you to offer some social things there as well.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm a business and even more than ever, I need to start thinking about local and making an impact locally. I've always kind of done well with maybe people around the world or people who are visiting from other countries. What are the main things I need to focus on to get my local search seen and heard?
So I think the most important thing is making sure your information's updated. That's core. It should be simple. It should be something that's like waking up, getting your coffee, making sure your hours are correct on Google My Business. But I also think if you can do whatever it takes to create this digital ambiance, like imagine Google My Business, they've got, thousands and thousands and thousands of searchers, every minute, and you've got an opportunity to show up. What are you doing to say, here is who I am. This is all the information you need to know to make a decision about whether you're going to do business with me or not. Like if you can say, yes, we've done it all, we've put it out all out there, then I think you're set. But I think that there's a lot of businesses that are not doing enough. They're not leveraging enough imagery. They're not leveraging enough of the features within GMB to say, this is our digital ambiance. It's as if you would feel if you walked into the doors of our store.
So good imagery, some good videos, some good offers, things like that. Okay.
Yeah, I say anything when you log into GMB, whatever the fields are, as long as it makes sense for your business and you've got the information there, that should always be your goal, is to enhance it all in GMB. It's free real estate and you've got a ton of eyes on it.
Totally free, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So once I've got that unlocked, what are the next steps that I should be taking?
So the next things you want to do, I think really important, are paying attention to your reviews. I think those are what's going to set you out from your competition. It's also a way to engage with your customer, maybe not necessarily from a social standpoint, but just we're a business in your community. We are interested in serving you, and we want to make sure that we are. So give us this feedback, give us the opportunity to improve, but also show them that you're improving, show them that you're putting any changes in place that are really important to your business, or listening to their feedback, or just grateful if they gave you, great reviews. I think that's got to be top of the list of what you should be doing from a local standpoint.
And someone like yourself, who's sharing about how SEO works, local SEO, where do you go for resources, information, ideas, kind of like trends that are happening in the industry?
So one of the best places, there's a local search forum that's run by Joy Hawkins out of Toronto and her agency Sterling Sky. There's a ton of information there. But one of my favorite things is, like, if you're like, I don't even know what to do, it's so overwhelming, just sign up for their digest, and they give you the top 10 articles from that week, which allow you to kind of pick and choose what you want to dive into versus just, dropping into this forum with a ton of information. So that's a great one. There's Search Engine Land. That's got a lot of the top information. Again, there's a lot about SEO in general, so you got to kind of pick and choose from a local standpoint what to do there. But I think those are two great places to start. If you've got GMB specific questions, the Google My Business Forum. I'm a product expert there, so we're there to provide updates and help answer any questions that users have.
That's awesome. And for you, as far as like apps that you can't live without, what are kind of your go-tos day to day?
So I think most often now, and this is kind of different recently, is like Google Maps versus like Google Search or Google Chrome. A lot of the times I'm living within the Maps app. Like I'm zooming into the map and I'm looking and clicking on all the businesses versus like going to Google and letting them serve me what information they think is relevant based on my search query. I'd rather like get all the information at my fingertips and dive in. So I'm always in the Maps app.
That's awesome. And what about for someone who's maybe a student right now or is in a career change, which is some people in this world, and they want to get into SEO, they want to get into local SEO. What is your advice to them who kind of wanted to get started on that path?
So this is going to, it's very specific, but there's this great new program called Women in Tech SEO. There's a Slack channel. There's a community board. Nice. They just launched their first mentorship and mentee program that I'm participating in, and it is amazing. Like they've got the brightest and best women there. They've got a ton of, new users that are new to this space that are there. So if you just search it, they've got a website, they've got a community board, all of that. So obviously if you're a woman, Women in Tech SEO is a great resource. And then obviously, if you're not a woman, the places I offered before, like the Local U and the Local Search Forum, they're great resources to get started. And all of the people that run them are just so helpful and kind that, if you just reach out looking for help or some guidance, those are great places to turn. I
assume Brittany Mueller's involved from Moz in the...
I don't know that she's involved. It's actually started with Areej, I don't know how to pronounce her last name, but she's based out of the UK.
Okay, cool.
And she's done a great job of organizing it. I think she's a little over a year of putting it together. And like I said, they just launched their first, mentee mentor program, which is great. I think there was like over 300 groups that got paired together. And you just connect and you've got this opportunity to just like free talk to someone. Like you both volunteered your time to whether ask questions or answer questions or provide, guidance. And it's just been awesome. And there's all different types of SEO within the community. So there's a local SEO organization, there's tech SEO, there's analytics, there's just, a ton. And it's been a great resource.
Wow. And so speaking of tech SEO, with all those resources out there, what are your recommendations? There's like SEMrush, Ahrefs, Moz, kind of what's your go-to? Screaming Frogs even?
Yeah, I would definitely say Moz is a great resource. I think it answers the need for businesses of all types. So I definitely think it's a great resource. There's, more advanced ones like you said, Screaming Frog and Ahrefs. But I think Moz is a great starting point. They've got a lot of support and resources there as well.
And do you say Ahrefs?
I don't know. Ahrefs, Ahrefs.
We should ask him. I should find. We've had Tim on the show. I should go back to.
I know it's SEMrush or SEMrush, but there's just I definitely say GIF and not GIF though. Okay. I know that one for sure.
Potato.
Yeah.
And then Neil Patel, the stuff that he's putting out as well, I find very fascinating. And even the resources he's giving, the free resources with his Uber Suggest.
Yeah, he's got a lot of resources. I do hear like conflicting things about him. So he's not someone I follow directly, but I definitely see a lot of people sharing his stuff. I think there's like difference of opinions about, how genuine some of the stuff he puts out versus where it's come from before.
Yeah, whether is it for his Google ranking or is it to be useful to the community?
Yeah, exactly.
Go-to podcasts or email subscriptions that you are a part of?
So I love, and again, I'm just like obsessed with the local community. So if you've got like, around local SEO, Last Week in Local is awesome. Obviously, this podcast, I've listened to a number of episodes. I love it. Agency Ahead by the Traject organization is another great one. And they've got a lot of different topics, whether it's, trying to figure out how your marketing team should work or working with agency partners or super specific topics on technical. That's another great one. And they're all quick. I love them because it's like, okay, I've got, a lunch break and I could just throw in a podcast and listen to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So here's a question. Just being in the industry for how long you've been, there's Facebook put out a thing called Facebook Blueprint. So it kind of just gives you in a sense, a certificate that says how to do your Facebook ads. Google puts out their Google Analytics certificate, their Google Ads certificate. Why do you think there hasn't been a general kind of global SEO certificate yet?
I think, in my opinion, it's probably because what SEO is changes based on business. So I don't think anyone can necessarily like drop into a space and say, I know how to, deliver amazing SEO to you. Like you really have to analyze the business. You have to understand its core competencies and you have to find a match. And so I think it's just so open-ended. Like what you do for one site and one customer is not what you're going to implement for another one. So I don't know that it's necessary to do like, there's certainly courses within SEO that are helpful to have background in. But I don't know that like an SEO academy or overall certificate would make sense. And that's because it's so custom and it changes so often. You would have to like probably update the certificate, every few months.
And so what's your advice to a company, a brand that's looking to hire an agency or an individual to do SEO for them? What are the things that you want to look for?
So I think like I mentioned before, is finding a right fit and making sure that you are very clear in what your KPIs are. I know a lot of times like agencies will say, we are going to deliver you X, Y, and Z. And if that's not what's most important to you, you need to be very clear about that. And you need to partner with someone that understands is going to work towards your KPIs. Like maybe your business is not based on call volume. So driving additional calls is not necessarily the most critical thing for you. So being really clear about those KPIs from the beginning, I think is really helpful in building a long-lasting relationship with an agency or partner. That's
awesome. And then the argument of the difference between offsite and onsite SEO. Where do you stand as far as the percentage of the importance of those different kind of types of SEO?
I honestly feel like they could easily be 50-50. I think it depends, like if you're talking about backlinks, if you're talking about like schema, and all of these things that kind of play into the bigger picture. I don't think you will be truly successful if you don't put effort into both of them. Now, again, based on your industry, based on, your clientele, like you might do 70-30 or 60-40, but they both need attention. Like if you're only focused on offsite, you're going to eventually hit a wall, and same thing if you're only focused with onsite.
That's amazing. Krystal, this has been incredible, full of nuggets and gems. Anything else that you want to leave with our listeners and viewers?
I would just say like right now we're all in these like weird times. We're either, still locked down like I am in California, or we're transitioning back to this, new normal, whatever that looks like. But from like a local standpoint, an SEO standpoint, just, do the best that you can. You're going to make mistakes. Just, lean on your community, whether that's, listening to podcasts, reaching out to a network, those types of things. I think that's more important than ever right now.
So that's awesome. And where can people find you if they're interested to reach out or to learn more?
The easiest place is Twitter. My handle is Krystal, Krystal_Taing, Taing. Please do not hesitate. I am open to get messages, DMs, whatever you need. I'm happy to help at any time.
And females that are wanting to get into SEO or already in SEO, the mentorship program sounds amazing. And are you a mentor for women as well?
Yes, yeah, I love it. It's been awesome. And like I said, you don't have to do that program. You can just join the Slack channel and have conversations. But yeah, that's Women in Tech SEO. If you just search it, you'll find their website where they link to all of their resources.
And remind people again about the Toronto resource, because that's awesome, made here in our home country.
Yes,
Canada.
so the main company is Sterling Sky, but they also run the local search forum and localu.org, which is this nonprofit educational resource that puts on conferences and blogs and resources, and they're awesome.
Wow, Krystal, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
It's been a real honor.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This week, for a very long time, I've been trying to find someone like Krystal to share, as you can see how important it is, how vital it is for you and your business, your organization, no matter the size or scope of what you do. Local SEO is so key and so crucial. So be sure to check out some of the links in the show notes, and we'll see you next week on Marketing Jam.